Welcome to another Pop Dissected Podcast, everybody. Today, we're going to discuss what it takes to make a number one single. How do songs really get to number one after all? Is it really just as simple as sales? Well, not anymore, especially given now we are in the streaming age of music. There's a multitude of factors that contribute to this. Some of them are legitimate, and others may be a bit more dodgy. However, that's just the music industry for you. Now, I'm no expert on music, and I never claim to be. A lot of the things I speak about are self-taught, and I learn from others. So for this subject matter, we're going to be learning together. So I've curated a handful of articles to scan through to really look for major key points, as well as things that are consistently brought up as contributing factors to a song's likelihood of reaching number one on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. Total disclaimer though, a lot of this information cited and utilized for this video spans over the past decade. So keep in mind, not all the information may be applicable to the right now in the present, but just not a lot of articles were found that were written within the last 3 or 4 years or so. A little fun fact, I actually began writing this in April of last year, and I opened it recently to finish it so I could actually release it, and saw that I had written the most incomprehensible paragraphs imaginable. Honestly, I was probably drunk, but not this go around, so let's get into it. The first thing I'd like to say is number one singles used to hold a lot more weight than they do now. Songs were purchased physically or digitally. Money was spent directly on the product. I think nowadays a number one is very easily achievable since people don't have to go out and buy things. That said, you can look at the number one singles from various years, and there are a good handful of them, so I think recognizing that may put that claim to some type of discredit. But going off of that, the overexposure we have, the knowledge that labels can in fact negotiate radio deals, the virality of certain songs, and the curation of chart-chasing tracks have become very much a staple. Is that to say that is the formula for every song now or every number one? No, but I do think it's something to consider. First, we have radio airplay and playlisting. These are likely the two biggest components as they arguably contribute to the most exposure for a song and for an artist. Radio airplay is the amount of times a song is played and the frequency in which it's done so. Playlisting is when a song is included in a set rotation of other songs, whether that's on radio or on services such as Apple Music, Spotify, what have you. With streaming services, you can have the ability to follow playlists and like them. The larger the audience is for a playlist, the more people are going to be listening to your song, which increases its streams. This could also entice a listener to further check out an artist's discography and stream a new album, other singles that are out, and so on. Streaming services are really the main push artists take. Playlisting also, however, depends on the chart position. See, this is where it gets a bit tricky, because there are so many moving parts to this ordeal, and you'll find basically all of them do require each other and are overlapping. If you'd like to gain more insight into other aspects of the industry, be sure to check out the description to learn a bit more about the music industry and its inner workings. Bottom line, if your song isn't making a dent in a ton of charts and isn't very high, you're going to get minimal playlisting unless the label advocates for you. However, more minor playlists do exist, but they aren't as lucrative, obviously. Say you're an independent artist and you want to get your music out. Unless you have the components of a viral track or a huge name, you're not getting on major playlists. Radio is a very underutilized resource and one that is often ignored. A lot of community radio stations exist, specific to a town or a city. This is a viable way for artists to march into a brick-and-mortar place and try to network. You find success on a local level, and it can leverage your chances of expanding. Community radio stations are in decline, however, and we primarily have these larger stations that you won't really get your foot in at the door. College radio stations also offer the same benefit as community ones. It's imperative to have a physical CD as well, and be really ahead of when the song is released so it can be fit into the radio schedule. It's also important to have some type of promoter to advocate for your music, or else your spins are not going to be great and your song won't be picked up and added to additional stations, thus additional playlisting. With playlisting and radio also comes promotion. Now, labels can very easily run ads for artists, put their songs in commercials, plaster their face in Times Square, and all of that stuff. Promotion isn't as hard as it seems. However, it's beyond, hey, I got a song out, lol. Katy Perry, I am looking at you. No shade, just saying. One great way for an artist themselves to promote is creating live stream countdowns, interconnecting all their socials so it's easily accessible, and teasing their music without giving too much away, which is kind of what we see now. Social media is great, but it can simply be a crutch as so many things can be lost or missed in the expansiveness of the internet, and followers and likes is not always indicative of an instantaneous success or even people's engagement. So we have airplay and streaming along with their playlisting. We also have pure sales, which have significantly gone down. Very few artists now can really sell music and albums, and I do not mean streaming equivalents, actual sales and sales that sustain themselves. Selling albums and songs not only makes them popular and chart well, it also drives people to come to your tour. It makes your body of work more well known. Quite literally, as stated, everything is interconnected. Album sales can additionally be pushed with pre-orders, which help increase the first week sales also, which is why you see such a dramatic decline when the second week sales come out, because I think that gauges the actual interest at the time. Artists can add special incentives to their albums, digital or physical, to increase overall sales, and I love a good incentive to buy a physical product, so I really enjoy that additive. What's interesting to note is prior to the SoundScan era, beginning in 1992, songs were tracked in popularity by the higher-ups, record label promoters, radio station directors, manager of retail sales, etc. A song's popularity was found in averaged survey rankings by these individuals, as opposed to primarily sales and airplay, which is why the charts weren't as sporadic as we've seen them been. Now in modern days, everything moves so fast and is consumed so fast. Thus, the chart more accurately reflects a song's interest, I believe. We have tracking weeks in music as well, in which every single week a song's performance is tracked with airplay, sales, and streams. This applies to albums too. The standard tracking week is every Friday to Thursday. Releasing at the beginning of a tracking week, a Friday, allows for a full week for all of those metrics to play out. Thus, all those metrics combined are part of what helps a song rise on the charts, which is why you see people groan about Tuesday or Wednesday releases, because they're only getting 2 to 3 days of tracking. So that's the logistical, numerical side of a song's success. But what about the actual artistry? I argue these are the things that drive all the aforementioned metrics: sales, airplay, and streaming. If a song objectively sucks, it won't get any of those. So this is probably going to be a bit complicated, and I'll do my best to relay this information as thoughtfully as possible. First, we have to understand the context of music at any given time. What genre is popular, who is popular, and what type of song is popular. There is a possibility one can look at current trends and be able to reverse engineer them in a way that caters to what people are consuming the most. That is one creative approach and shows that success really is a science. But of course, things can become dated and trends can evolve rather rapidly. I read this quote that said, "Popularity is a moving target, but context always remains relevant." An analysis that covered 58 years on the Hot 100 history found that songs generally do better on the Hot 100 that are differentiated enough from what is around it, but also plays into certain aspects of familiarity of what has been popular before. Though wildly original songs exist, there is some sort of footprint in a lot of them that can be tied to something that exists already. Success can be attributed to finding a balance between familiarity and novelty. The same analysis revealed that overall, most of the number one singles of the past 58 years were more removed and differentiated in many aspects from anything else around it on the charts. Does this mean that every number one single is this mind-boggling brand new genre, sound, and approach? No, because context is key. but generally so, many number ones were different enough from what was charting to rise above everything else. This is a very interesting analysis that takes into account a ton of factors, and some math and science I will never understand. However, I'll link it in the description if you're curious, alongside the final observational study I'm about to get into. This one looks at 60 years of number one singles, and it actually concluded very similar findings. Every number one throughout time is less similar to the one preceding it, and well-performing songs contain enough originality to stand out, but still appeal to basic conventions as to not alienate audiences. Thus, success can sometimes be more of a science rather than strictly about art, as I said. 8 components were analyzed through an algorithm over the 60 years of number ones. Danceability, calculated through tempo and strength and the regularity of the beat. Then there's tempo itself, the speed of the song. Energy, being fast, loud, noisy. Acousticness, the likelihood of a song being acoustic. Liveness, the likelihood of a song being recorded live. Now, if you're very auto-tuned and production heavy, the aforementioned 2 categories will likely get a low score for your song. There's also speechiness, comparing syncing against more spoken words. Instrumentalness, how often it is just music as opposed to vocals. And lastly, valence, the positiveness of the track. Is it inspiring, so to speak? Since this algorithm ends in 2016, I found 4 hit songs from that year, and they averaged higher in energy, danceability, and valence, lower in tempo, and the other components didn't really have a reading. 2010 showcases a huge spike in energy, but treads more into speechiness and liveness. Modernly, instrumentalness is hardly given any type of reading. It would take forever to break down every decade, so if you're interested in this, and I promise you, it's very interesting to look at, please check the link in the description if you want to learn more. With that, I'm going to bring this to a close. If you learned anything new, be sure to drop a like and subscribe to get more videos like this, and be sure to let me know what your favorite number one single is. Before we wrap up, I'd also like to shout out my channel members, Skyhawker, Daniel Barron, Steven, and David Vosmediano. Y'all are awesome. If you'd like to become a channel member, we'd love to have you.